Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate all of you tuning us on in for Varla, Ventura and our cryptid world tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun talking forest monsters and sea monsters as we go through the night. We're happy all of you are here, including Race Fan in the gold medal position and B in the silver. Tim Mothman and his goatee with a bronze medal tonight. Robert Lamoth, Laura Lobbs, and Dino Bravo. Nice to see you. Hi, Karen in the Woo Train, James Horn, Michael Morris, and who else is here? Brown Dwarf is back. Brown Dwarf will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Chris 716, Deer Slayer, the lovely and talented Kira, good to see you. Hi, Sandra Kincaid and Forrest Louie, good to see you both. Canna Chef Chris, nice to have you here. As we continue on with roll call tonight, Jessica Davenport, thank you for coming on in. Hi, Major Lee, Doc from Wyoming, and Jack Clark. Good to see you all. Roger Murray, how you doing, my man? Thank you for coming on in. And number 17 in your program, starting at right wing, from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. He's going to pot 23 goals in the next 18 games. He promised me. Promised me that. All right, Luscious Jules, how are you? Dirt Road, what's happening? Dirt Road will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Continuing on with our roll call tonight, Eternity Eternal, nice to see you. Marty Burback, thanks for coming on in. Bar Madison, good to see you. And Scanman, thank you for joining us tonight. And over on Facebook, it's Aussie Ange. There she is. Yep. I love how she's named her Facebook profile, Aussie Ange. I'm taking credit for that. I really am. Aussie, how you doing? Purple-haired Pixie Lara, nice to see you. W. David Page, Kurt M. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. And Skip Malou, thank you for coming on in. Good morning to you. Rayfin, Noble Patrick, good to see you both. Hi, Asteroid. And Gizmo, how you doing, my man? Good to see you. Continuing on with our roll call here, Ruth Kleber, thank you for joining us. Me Woiken, nice to have you here. IXOXI, good to have you here. And who else is here? Boletium, my man, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call. And look at Ozzy, and she's like, you named me, Dave. Yes, I did, because I love you. That's why. Yes, and your hubby, too. He's pretty awesome as well. Long Island Bigfoot, good to have you back. And Asimov, thank you for coming on in. Algaray over on Twitch, good to see you. Thanks for the head up. I'll line up for the right of the studio for that autograph. Very nice. Very nice. There it is. And who else do we have? Little Cam over on Twitch. Thank you for coming on in. Rat Sass, nice to see you again. As, well, we're pretty quick here. Waiting for a few more people to get in. Reminder, the Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, Operation Shutdown. How you doing? What do you say? Let's start the radio side, shall we? And welcome to the radio side and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us in for Varla Ventura's Our Cryptid World as we await Bill WD-40 to enter the chat room and lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. That's for sure. There he is, everybody, over in the Spreaker chat. Bill WD-40. He is lubing us up as we speak, because that's the way he does it. No messing around, no nothing, just lubing us on up. And we also want to tell you that our store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Yes, a plethora. So make sure you check it on out. We do not have ugly swag, people. Nothing ugly there whatsoever. You can actually wear it in public. We got 30 seconds to go here before we launch tonight's show. And we are all caught up in our chat room so far. Chillgasm, how you doing from Colorado? Pam Harris, thanks for coming on in. And yeah, now we wait. Dirty Filth is going to be here drawing another cartoon. We got a week full of filthy so far. This has been a high quality week in filth, and maybe we'll get a blob sighting too. Lucky Gypsy, how are you? Do me a favor, everybody. It's that time of the night. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of fun tonight, as it always is, when Varla Ventura from Our Cryptid World joins us here to talk all sorts of forest-dwelling monsters and sea monsters as well. Then in hour number 3, it's going to be busy. Steve Stockton from Among the Missing, Travis William Moostus filling in on the Cryptid Report for an ill Robin Haynes. Follow that up. It's Dave 101 night and the weird news of the week. I love this time of the month because every time Varla Ventura is on here, it just seems to pick up my spirits. When we get into the darkness of the monsters among us. See, we don't usually talk Bigfoot and Dogman when Varla's around. No, we get into the darker side of the cryptids, from vampires and banshees to puckwedgies, trolls, and gnomes that are roaming the forest. And as well, she loves her sea monsters. You can find her books at any major bookstore. Yes, there are still bookstores out there, people, and we should shop more at them rather than buying them online. But you can also buy them online at our website, varlaventura.net. Let us say hello to the one and only Varla Ventura. Thank you so much for coming back on Spaced Out Radio again this month. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me back. Every time you invite me back, I feel so happy.
Yes. You know what? But
didn't offend anyone yet.
We do have to celebrate because tomorrow, you no longer have a young boy in your house.
Right.
You got a young man who turns into a teenager.
Yes, I have a teenager. In just a couple of hours here, he'll be a teenager. So on the breaks, I may be blowing up balloons, lest anyone think I'm doing something untoward. They're balloons, people.
Oh, no problem. No problems. give a big happy birthday from all of us at Spaced Out Radio. If you
Thank
don't.
you. I will.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I mean, even though he's a goaltender in hockey, which automatically means he's a little weird in the head. And
Yeah,
I mean,
we were
you know,
just talking about that and saying, the rest of the population, if something flying comes at their head, they sort of like duck and cover, protective mode, and goalies just, go chest first into it.
goaltenders.
Definitely a certain type. Yeah.
I remember, here's a goalie story for you. My dad had, when he coached junior A hockey, there was a line brawl on the ice. And his goalie at the time, who was a typical goalie, just absolute psycho kind of guy, he skates down there. He watches their goalie try and pick up one of our defensemen. Okay. He skates the length of the ice, tackles the goalie, drives his head into the boards. Okay. Like I thought the kid broke his neck.
Yikes.
Okay. He picks up, literally shakes his head off, and just gives a shellacking to the other team's goalie. And I was at 14 years old. I was the stick boy for my dad's team, so I had to clean up all the hockey gear from the players and keep them in the dressing room. I walked up to him. His name is Jason. I said, "Jason, are you okay after hitting your head?" "Oh man." He goes, "Yeah, I'm fine, man." He goes, "It's just part of the game. Had to get that guy off my player, man." He goes, "Yeah, I'm fine."
All the way down the ice.
There's no way at top speed hitting his head like that, the boards, that he shouldn't have left with a concussion. But it was awesome.
Extra thick skulls.
Yeah, that's a
goalies.
goaltender, all right. That's a goaltender. But congratulations to your son on becoming
Thank you.
a teenager.
That's so nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate
Yeah.
that.
No problem. No problem. We're talking forest monsters tonight.
Yeah.
We've talked all sorts of monsters with you over the last number of years that we've been doing this, but we've never really got into forest monsters. And I'm not talking Dogman and Bigfoot here. I'm talking everything from puckwudgies to little people to trolls under the bridge, gnomes, little forest dwellers, and the forest keepers, as I like to call them, that keep the forest safe and sound. I mean, you have covered, before we get too deep into that, you have covered so many monsters and legends over the years of your writings and your research on this. Is there a lot more out there than what we actually think is out there?
Oh, it's almost endless, honestly. Every book that I've done about folklore, any kind of creatures, literally the minute it goes to press, I've learned about something that I hadn't heard of before. And so I think the other really remarkable thing, as there's just so many different, there's similar like counterparts to a lot of these creatures and different sort of names for them depending on the language, how it was translated. And so it's also really interesting. The more you kind of dig into it, it'll remind you like, oh, that kind of, that thing has a dog-like face. So that's interesting. And you kind of start seeing some of the threads and similarities there, which is really, that's really exciting to me to be able to kind of like make those connections. But yeah, I'm kind of like, thank you for having me tonight, because it's a really welcome break, because I'm actually in the home stretch of finishing a new book and sending the manuscript off. So it won't be out until April of 2025, but it has led me down quite a few rabbit holes, interesting rabbit holes in terms of folklore. And this particular book is about, it's sort of like anchored by plants rather than by creatures, but the forest is made of plants, right? So all of these old fairy tales and folk tales are kind of coming through. And actually, well, you'll appreciate this, Dave, but there's a lot of like Slavic stories that have been things of Slavic origin. Those dark, cold forests of Russia and Ukraine, and oh god, there's just like so many deep dark stories over there, and it always involves like a forest. And so I'm looking at the plants, but then I just keep finding all of these wonderful creatures, and including some I'd never heard of before. So it's been really fun to kind of put this book together. But I say fun, and I really mean it's been like sort of horrible. Like I can't wait to send it off because it's just so stressful. It's like, I'm sure some people can relate to that. You get a deadline and you're just all of a sudden you realize how much more you have to say and how far you are from actually being there. And but yeah, I've cleared my schedule for the next 2 weeks to get the final chapter done and get it off. So I keep saving all of these things. I keep like, okay, this isn't going to go in the book, but I'm going to save this for a podcast episode, or I'm going to save this for a talk with Dave on Spaced Out Radio, because I can't fit it in the book. And it's not, like I said, I go down a rabbit hole, and it's not really, you're kind of have to keep focusing like, wait, that's not really relevant to the story, but it's a very cool story, but it really has nothing to do with the arc of the entire book. So it goes in its own little super cool things that I want to talk about, or the outtakes from the book. So yeah. Going great.
I think that's wonderful. Here's one of the things that I noticed, and it didn't make sense to me back in the day, but it does now. I remember, like, my family, we go out geocaching.
Oh, fun.
Okay. And we go out, we try and find these trinkets at the end of the line from the trails that we're supposed to take. And a couple of times now in different locations, I have gone into the forest with my son and trying to, or my daughter, back when she was, still young and liked me.
Yeah, I still wanted to go to the forest with you.
Yeah, and I recall walking into the forest into certain areas, and once you get a little bit deeper into where the geocache is supposed to be located, then you got to find it. But seeing areas where people have placed ceramic mushrooms around, almost creating a little village for the gnomes and the little people around in an area. And there's never been any gnomes, or you could get like little squirrels or deer or whatever. There's none of those. It's just mushrooms. And I know that the mushrooms attract the gnomes, and they attract the little people. It's kind of like a safe place for them. Have you ever seen anything like that? Because it is kind of cool.
Yeah. So I have been on more like urban forest walks where I've come upon that, like more like a huge park in the middle of the city, or like Forest Park in Portland is like that massive, really huge forest, but there's all these great trails and stuff, but technically it's an urban park. And I've been on a lot of those where I'll see like they're almost set up as like offerings. Sometimes I think children are involved in that too, so it's like that. Remember the painted rock thing that was like huge during the pandemic, where kids would paint rocks and have a great day and then leave it in somebody's garden, and then they would take that and then they would paint one. And but there's a sort of an offering element to it that I really appreciate. I think with a lot of the sort of forest dwelling creatures, non-animal creatures, these sort of more supernatural beings, I think they require some kind of offering. So I think what we have today is this very sort of like distilled but still relevant version of going into the forest and making kind of a grander offering to a tree or to a tree spirit, or to create a little environment. I mean, I have fairy gardens in my garden. I have small places that they can go to hide, and I put shiny things in there. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't I? Of course, I want them to feel welcome. um, but yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing, so just total sidebar, but you said mushrooms, so we're going to go there. So the other part, I've been reading a lot of like folklore or stories that also involve mushrooms. I think that's going to be a separate book because mushrooms are really their own entity. In fact, I remember learning like many years ago when I was studying botany and stuff, I remember learning that mushrooms have this thing in their cells called chitin, which animal cells have and plant cells do not. So they actually, of course, I'm sitting there in class thinking like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. Like mushrooms really are part human. Cause you know, all those depictions of like little mushrooms with faces, it's like they are sort of animalistic. But there's this amazing, and we know today so much more about the ecology of it, but the relationship between plants and mushrooms is as old as plants and mushrooms themselves, and that symbiotic relationship where they're actually nourishing each other and creating a more fertile environment for plants to grow. It's so remarkable, and not to mention like all the amazing things mushrooms can do, like remove heavy metals from your body and crazy things like that. But just in terms of like that kind of forest creature and the relationship, you see depictions of mushrooms, and I think that's why mushrooms are really having a moment right now. They're like everywhere, and I'm so here for it because I'm more than happy to lick a toadstool, do what I got to do to get on that broom. So I think just that relationship that little people, that fairy creatures, that woodland dwelling creatures have with mushrooms traditionally makes it a very natural fit for people to kind of create that sort of art and put those things out and about for their, in their own gardens.
Right, right, and creating those areas where, well, like fairy gardens, and in my area where I live, all of the older houses, including my own, still have fairy gardens in them. And like you'll see areas that are are completely redone with gardens or grass or fire pits or whatever, but there's usually one spot in the person's yard that remains totally natural. Like mine has you know rose hips in it. It has
Mm.
thorns in it. It has birch trees. It has you know sorts of flowers in there, and brush that I just cannot. I don't even know what the names are. I gotta find one of those apps that can name things for me.
Just
But
send me a picture.
I will do that.
I'm one
I
of those apps.
Are you really?
Ah, yeah, usually I can identify most plants.
Yeah. So then I got my rock garden where my little fairy door is, right by my big 75-foot tree in my
Ooh.
front. Yeah. So I mean, it's it's something that we try and put together, and a lot of people in this area that have been here a long time take it very seriously with the fairies. I've seen fairies in my own yard,
Oh,
and
do tell.
well, I have these on my fence post line between my neighbor and my house, or my neighbor's yard and my yard. I have these fence posts that are about every 10 feet. And one night I took a break during the show. It was a nice night. There were supposed to be northern lights out. So it was during one of our breaks. I go and take a look outside, and two of my posts have one has a red orb on it, and one has like an orangish red orb sitting on it,
Hmm,
just sitting on them. I'm like, oh, the fairies are here. How cool.
how cool.
My daughter, she used to have she used to have when she would go out and meditate in the green belt behind our house. She would sit on the ground. She'd cross her legs, and she said she would watch all of these like 4 or 5 different colored fairies come into her and literally sit on her legs and on her arms. And and just all part of her meditation.
It's so interesting that you point out that they were like sort of points of light, because I also had a forest experience like that when I was a teenager. And I was at the base of a beautiful, I think I was in an old growth forest, but the tree itself may not have been all that old, but it was, probably a good 100 years at least. And I was sitting at the base of this beautiful, it was actually a spruce tree. And just was kind of sitting there, like away from the fire and away from the camp, and just sort of by myself for a minute. And I saw all of these lights. And at first they weren't, I've seen fireflies. They weren't like fireflies. They were like more like little orby things, but they were quite small, and there were quite a number of them, and they were white, and they seemed to sort of come down from the spruce tree. And, I just kind of went with it for a minute. It didn't scare me or anything, but I was I honestly just thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But then later, so they sort of descended down, and they really felt like they kind of had come from that tree. And later I learned, later in life, I learned that sometimes that is the way that people will see. I know a lot of people associate orbs with ghosts or spirits, but I have learned that that is frequently how people will describe or have identified fairies, including in old folklore and literature. And that's why we have the will o' the wisp, right? Which we know is sort of a scientific phenomenon, like it's the phosphorus or something's like catching on fire, so you're seeing these like glowing lights. But it can happen in like an extreme. It can happen in different environments, and I think that's very interesting, because I think we maybe associate orbs only with it being, the ghosts or things that we've caught. But I've read that in numerous accounts from, hundreds of years ago to today. So I love that you saw that right there. I mean, it just kind of brought that back for me, that experience of seeing something that I knew was of the forest. And just to be clear, like, yeah, I was out there partying with my friends, but I had a group of friends. We had all grown up as little heathens in the forest, and we're all very respectful of the forest. We were raised to be respectful of the forest. We didn't go out there and throw our beer cans and, chuck them in the woods. And we were, we would sleep on the forest floor, and we would make sure our fires were out completely, and we wouldn't leave our trash behind. But we were, this is kind of what we did for fun. Let's go and hang out in the forest and try and see weird things at night in the sky, where there's no light pollution and no, maybe make out a little, of course, because there's no adults around.
Well, of course. Of course.
I mean, teenagers in the woods, it's kind of, that's the setup for every horror story in the world, I think.
Well, I mean, isn't that where horror movies begin?
Yeah.
With a little smoochy smooch in the forest, and
you're
thing
distracted.
Next thing you know, there's a werewolf chasing you down.
There's nothing you can do about it. It's too late.
Exactly. And we're going to get into...
the moral of the story is...
Right. We got a minute to go here before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Varla Ventura is our guest tonight. The forest hides a lot of secrets, but one thing that intrigues me is how many of these creatures, they can hide on us right in plain sight. Whether they have a cloaking ability, a distortion ability, or something, they just seem to be able to vanish into thin air. And that includes Bigfoot, Dogman in that conversation. And that is something I want to get into when we come back, because I do believe, as Arimathea says in our chat room, that these creatures do seem to be vibrating on a higher frequency at times, where they just seem to be there 1 second and gone the next. And you haven't moved. You're still staring at the same place. God,
like a foolish mortal that you are.
Exactly. The foolish mortal that I am. All right, Varla, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here. at the bottom of the hour. Varla Ventura's Our Cryptid World happens here at the end of each month on Spaced Out Radio. We are having a great time with Varla, so thank you so much for tuning us in. Her website, varlaventura.net. You'll find all her books there and in any major bookstore. We will be right back. Hi, Varla.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm going to blow up some balloons.
You blow up some balloons. I'm going to say hello to Mama Catherine. Mwah. I love you, Mama Catherine. See you soon. Susan Alloway, how are you? And Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his Spaced Out Radio. Oh, yeah, that felt good. That felt good. Ian McFadden, good morning to you in the UK. Bobbert, good to see you. Science Bob, how you doing? Do you have your overalls on, Science Bob? I bet you have overall pajamas. That's something I've never asked, but all of a sudden I want to know, Science Bob, do you have overall pajamas? If you do, by God, I want to set. I do. Who else is here? Arimathea Perkins, welcome to the chat room. It's your second time here. Glad to have you here. And who else is here? Scrolling on down. Rock and Rory. Tweet, tweedledee, tweet, tweet. Yep. Look at Vanessa. We love Varla Ventura. Love it. Love it. All right. Who else is here? Yeah. That's a good balloon. That's a good. Come on, keep going. Keep going. You can do it. You can do it. Let's check in with Dirty Filth here. Oh, we have a blob alert, people. We have a blob alert. There she is, everybody. Say hello to Blob. There's Blobbert. We can't hear you, Filth. Blobbert hanging out.
There we go. I found it.
I see Blobbert's inspecting the art tonight.
Well, that's her job as the art director.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Extremely important. Hi, CS. How you doing? Congratulations on your daughter receiving her driver's license today. Feel sorry for you because you got to experience the driving. Oh. Jamie Cotterill. How you doing, man? JSCO. Big Blob fan right there. Oh, Blob. Man, Blob, if you could read, the comments are crazy in the chat room for you, kitty. Crazy in the chat room.
Positive approval, Blob.
Yep. Look at that. She just acknowledged the fans right there. Totally just acknowledged the fans.
I think she'll get some cat snacks after the show.
We gotta turn one of your cartoons of Blob into a t-shirt.
Yes, we do. I'll have to draw one specifically for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That way we can make Blob t-shirts for people.
Well, there's my plan for the weekend.
Look, Blob's like, hi, everybody. I know you're here to see me.
Bask in the glory that is Blob.
Derek Cook, how you doing? Spaced Out Radio. Hold on. How did the Mustang do? Spaced Out Radio Mustang got third place tonight and hoping for another. Right on, Derek. I still have your pictures, man. Still have your pictures up on my computers at work. It's freaking awesome. Blobberoo from Australia.
That's your cousin,
I think the best name, though, is, and we have to, when Science Bob is back on the show, you have to come back. We can have Science Bob and Science Blob.
Yes. Absolutely.
VW Blue Sky, welcome back. It's been a while. Nice to see you. I love Derek Cook. Derek literally has designed on the NASCAR racing video game. He has designed a spaced out radio NASCAR with our logos on it. It freaking looks amazing. When he sends over the pictures, I'm going to put them in like, Derek, I hope you don't mind. I'd like to put it like in PDF form or pardon me, JPEG form and make t-shirts out of it. I think that'd be cool. I really would. Thank you to Sandra tonight for the lone super chat that we've got for this February 29th. Yes, appreciate the love. Super chat is always open. Don't forget to shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Here we go with Varla. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Good to have Varla Ventura back for Our Cryptid World, her monthly edition of this show that we do, because we love Varla around here. And Varla's website, varlaventura.net. You can find all her books there or at any major bookstore that is around North America. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, let's continue on here. We were talking right before the break about how these forest-dwelling creatures seem to have this ability to cloak themselves or disappear right in front of our very eyes. Some people believe they have this ability to shake themselves so fast and vibrate so fast that it breaks up their frequency and helps them vanish. Maybe they have an elevator stashed behind a tree like Bugs Bunny, and they just hit the elevator and go down into the nether regions of this planet. What do you think is going on with a lot of these creatures that could just vanish?
I know it's really interesting. So in some of the original Celtic lore, the idea of the fairies being able to disappear was actually a gift from the sea god who gave them this cloak of invisibility so that they could actually stay in Ireland and not be destroyed by mankind and the other supernatural race that they're warring against. So it's kind of, I like that idea, right? That there's this explanation for a way to basically turn invisible. I mean, we don't really know exactly what it is that I just love kind of the intersection of what we think about today, and we think of like, you know, this high frequency vibration or you know, sort of a way of manipulating actual, like, you know, molecules to kind of create something that looks invisible. Or maybe they're just like really, really fast. I mean, that's what I used to think when I was a kid. Like they were just so fast that they could they just travel like light, right? It just travels on a different frequency. I think all of those things are possible and also probably true, right? I'm sorry, I've got to put the balloon bag over here, making a little noise. I guess I imagine that more than thinking about what makes them go invisible, I probably spend more time wondering why they choose to be visible and when they choose to be visible. especially given the long and storied history that, you know, humans have against sort of destroying the other, which is anything that you thought was a witch, anything that like a witch grew, like all these things were, you know, anything a witch was in cahoots with. We're all quick to destroy those things, to try and suppress them. And so naturally, the supernatural is very observant and very keen, and understands that they have to sort of coexist with humans, but they don't have to actually be here all the time with us. So some people call it like a parallel dimension. I'm not really sure what it is. It's certainly, there's some overlap there of worlds, and more than anything, I think it really kind of comes down to our concept of time and how we perceive time and space. Babies don't perceive time and space the same way adults do, right? Because they haven't learned that they have to stay on a clock. They haven't learned that they have to see one thing and not see another. Their eyes haven't adjusted. We have all of these reasons why, you know, they're evolving, and then they're going to learn this, but they're not on a schedule until, you know, they get old enough to get dropped to daycare or whatever, and now they're on a schedule. So we teach the concept of time, right? We teach the 24-hour clock. We instill that. We all have that, like, sort of was really beaten into us. And we talk about like going off grid and like, checking out or just kind of, being unplugged and all of those things. What we're really trying to do is to stop being beholden to that clock that we rely on. We rely on it for business hours. We rely on it for our paychecks. We rely on it for so many things, right? So I think within that concept of like time and space, there's a little bit of a different idea of how you can see things. And people who are able to see other creatures like yourself, Dave, or ghosts, or commune with spirits that are otherwise invisible, they are actually considered, really should be considered. It's really kind of a gift and a great ability to be able to have those things appear before you. But in ritual, we frequently are trying to make the visible or the invisible visible. That's why we use smoke. That's why we use incense. That's why we use things to kind of candles. We use things to try, sort of take that invisible air and the supernatural and make it visible and make it tangible for us. So, I mean, honestly, that's my long way of saying they absolutely have the ability to be invisible. I don't think it means they disappear. I think it's a choice. And if I were them, I would probably choose to be as invisible as possible. And even that's today, but like, even if you go back hundreds of years, it wasn't like everybody was walking around like arm in arm with fairies and Pookas and, it was the occasional encounter, and you actually sort of avoided it because you might get sucked into their time, and then you get sucked into their time, you're never coming back, right? Or you come back 100 years later. So
I want to just cut you off right there because I think that's important. Is their timeline, these little critters' timeline, different from our timeline?
I think so. I think it's absolutely different. I think it's, animals don't have the same timeline that we have. I mean, they get the sunrise and the sunset, and then you get your nocturnal creatures. So they sort of operate on the elements, and the sun and the moon. Those are sort of their clocks. But in that same way, I think that if you're talking about a supernatural creature like a forest dwelling creature, they absolutely have their own timeline. They have their own, way of doing things. And I don't think it's the same thing as our time. I don't even think our time really is real. I think our time's the fake time. And that's why we have to constantly check a clock because otherwise we won't know what time it is. right? I mean, there are those people who can say, all right, I think it's about midnight, and they're dead on, right? But like, we're constantly looking at the clock because we don't know, because we've kind of lost that ability to just track it. So I do think that it's on a different time. I think it's in a completely different I don't want to say dimension, because I don't love that. I don't love that word. I just don't love the word, alternate dimension. But it is certainly like operating in a different way. And fairy time is totally different. And this is actually fundamental to all folklore about the fairy realm, or the other realm, the realm of the good people. A fundamental central to that is the understanding that their world is different and it operates on a different time frame. And that is why you don't go there unless you are on a quest, or specifically looking for something or someone, or seeking help, or petitioning a creature. But usually what you do if you're petitioning a creature is you get them to come to you by making an offering, in the woods or the stones or the sea or wherever you're doing it. So you don't really cross into that realm unless you really, really need to, or you are foolish, or you it's an accident. And those stories, and I can tell you because I've been researching in particular the plants and things that are served at a feast, and things that are associated with certain creatures. And time again, across cultures, there's the warning not to eat or drink anything should you find yourself in a incredibly enchanting castle in the woods when you had just been napping a minute ago. If you feel like you wake up and everything looks so glamorous, honestly, Dave, it's a little like Vegas. The first night you can stay up all night and everything looks nice and shiny and good, and then you get a little nap, and then you do it again the next day, and by the third night you can kind of start seeing the cracks in the ceiling, and you can kind of start, like, your feet start to hurt. It's like you get trapped in this like loop of a confusion of time. And it's honestly very similar to stories that people tell of abductions and of being, that loss of time, or time slips. That's such a fascinating thing. Time slips, like that. I love when people tell stories about time slips. I've not had too many myself, and honestly, like, mine could probably be explained by certain substances at certain times. But I think, like, overall, the idea, I just think we have this really, and I say we collectively because, we do. We work on the 24-hour clock, and we operate on the 7-day week and all of that jazz. And it's leap year, so I'm glad we're talking about time, because that's another, like, weird thing, right? Like, we have to add a day to make up for time that we didn't, to make it fit our calculations. But that's just all kind of a way to say, yeah, I think their time is very different. So what happens is you eat something, you drink something, you stay there for a really what seems like a lovely night, and then you can't stop dancing, and then after a while all the maidens start looking a little haggard, and all the handsome youth are starting to look very craggy and old, and so the glamour wears off, and that's part of the magic. The glamour does wear off, and then by then, if you've eaten something, you're trapped, so you just got to embrace it. But it's that shape-shifting, that age-old shape-shifting concept that when it appears to be something and you go closer to it, you want to be with it, and then it turns out to be, it shape-shifts into like some sort of horrible wolf-like creature that then bites your head off and kills you, and scatters your body parts all over the woods.
Well, that's pleasant. That's very pleasant. Do you believe that there is an underground world out there, like below us, that an inner earth that all of these creatures seem to gather around, and so, there's always these alleged rumors that people who go missing in the forest have actually been taken to this underground world where they are either, eaten or kept as prizes and pets and
Yeah.
whatever it may be. What do you know about the underworld?
Big fan. No. Big fan of the underworld. Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's quite as like flip side as we might imagine it, because again, we have this really like concrete view of the world and time. And so I think the transformation into those other worlds is not always like tangible or as quantifiable as we want them to be. I want to know there's a door. I open that door. I go through it. On the other side, there's a magical garden, right? But in reality, I might just be sitting in the same place and traveling to that place through astral projection or something like that. So yeah, I do. I actually think there's this coexisting world, and a lot of it is underground because that's the safe place. And I also believe that there's passages. I mean, I do think that there's portals and that you can get from one place to another. Now, I say you, but I don't really, not many of us can actually do that. I think that we have probably collectively as a human race lost a large portion of our magical, portal going abilities. Sorry to break it to everyone. I think we can get it back, though. I do think we can get it back. I think we just have to, keep exploring and keep learning and keep practicing and, keep kind of stumbling into those ley lines and those crossroads where late at night that maybe we shouldn't be at. But yeah, I totally, I don't think all like fairy creatures live underground, but I do think there is sort of an other world. Many cultures believe that that the natural world, such as trees, plants, animals, that they have a spirit in particular that lives within them, and that spirit can actually come out, and the tree can still stay where it is. That's kind of like that's the principle of magic and religion right there. That there's something more than just one all-seeing God up in the sky, right? That there's actually spirit within all of these different things that we might otherwise just take an axe to. So it's really interesting. And I've been spending a lot of time actually going through, like I said, I feel like I've been going through all of these folkloric forests over the last several months. And in those forests, I'm also seeing the layers of how they're approached. So if I'm reading a book by, like an Anishinaabe woman, the way that the plants and the natural world is described is completely different than describing that same forest by, some Victorian reverend who happened through the land, back in like the 1800s. So it's just really interesting to see the way that you actually see a lot of the same stories, but they're told slightly differently, and that's storytelling. That's actually, that's how it should be. It's the fish was this big, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger. Like that's the beauty and the art of storytelling. But Dave, here's the tie-in. That time when you're like completely lost in story, and this is where fairy tales really, this is where the art of storytelling and the importance of these things that I think sometimes people hear fairy tales and they think like, oh, Cinderella or whatever, which is actually a great fairy tale. But they don't really, understand like the greater, it's sort of an umbrella term. Folklore, maybe people are more comfortable with, but it's this idea of telling stories about this other world and our encounters with them. I mean, you do it like every night on your show, right? Like technically it's storytelling. And the greatest part about that is when you are really, really engaged in something like that, and you're really kind of just going down that road and you're listening to that person, you lose your concept of time. And boom, you're in the fairy realm. And they have basically proven their point. They have transported you because you are retelling their story. And that's a huge part of the value of that, and the value of retelling and telling these stories and talking about our experiences and our encounters with these cryptids and crazy creatures and whatever sort of monstrous twiggy things we've seen wandering the forest. It's, you get locked into that, and then before you know it, time has changed. And you weren't looking at hopefully people aren't looking at their their clock constantly right now. I know you have to watch the clock because of
I'm
our
always watching the
schedule.
clock.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like really, when you think about like being around a fire and somebody's just telling this great story and you're just listening and you're in that story and you've forgotten about the world around you. You've forgotten that you have to go, get some more beer from the fridge or whatever it is you're supposed to run in and go and do. You really can. It doesn't happen that often. Lots of people tell stories and they're interesting and it's fun, but to really go through that transformative experience, like I always just think that's fairy time right there. Or your daughter meditating, that's fairy time. And it's different time.
I love it. We got 3 minutes to go before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, Varla Ventura is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking about forest dwellers, forest cryptids, and everything going along. What are some of the creatures that are folklore around? I've seen a little, I call it a wood nymph.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
My son
I
and
love this. Yeah.
have
Describe
seen
it,
them.
please. I need
And
you to describe it.
we were geocaching. And I wish I had like a sketch artist to actually draw this, because my artistry, I can barely draw a stick figure.
What about Filth? He's right there.
I know, but our radio audience doesn't know he's there,
No, that's true.
right? And so we were walking down this trail. We were geocaching. My son was 3, and we were having a father-son day around the lake. We had just moved to this area where I am now, and we were exploring one of the lakes, and it was in late August, early September, and we had to be careful because there was bears around. So that's where my son had to learn to be bear aware, because when you're walking the trail along the lake,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you see some fresh dookie from a bear, that they're around. So
You're gonna make some noise.
we walk up this knoll, and we get the geocache, and I put my son back in his stroller, and we start making our way back down. And then as we started making our way to crest the hill down, the lake is below us about 40 feet. And this little 2x4 of a thing, about 18 inches tall, with like cartoon legs and cartoon arms, comes walking up the embankment and starts walking towards across the path. And I stop, and I said to my son, "Do you see that?" And I'm looking at this thing. It's looking back at us. And then in cartoon lightning speed, just vroom, it takes back off down the hill towards the lake. Never saw it again. This happened in about a 7-second span. Okay. And I'm just like, what the hell is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Because it was so cartoonish. It reminded me of something like right out of South Park type of thing. Like
Phil
take,
is pointing out his drawing because he basically nailed
yes,
it.
yeah, that's pretty much it, except shorter arms. But the look of it is darn near perfect. And that thing, I don't know what it was. you know, I to this day, I've never seen it again.
Mm.
I don't know if I'll ever see it again, but it made me really believe that there are little forest dwellers walking around our parks and recreation areas. Varla will continue with that when we return on Spaced Out Radio. VarlaVentura.net is Varla's website. All of her books can be found on her website or at any major bookstore across North America. Yes, people, they still exist. So head on in. Get some books today. Spaced Out Radio with Varla Ventura and Our Cryptid World continues right after this. That was a good pull. Very quick pull there, Dirty Filth.
Yeah, impressive.
I've
I've got everything on hand.
I love that.
Here's the difference between what I saw and what you drew. The body and the eyes are actually very accurate, except the body
Eerily accurate.
Yeah, eerily accurate. Except the body would go just past the knees. Okay. And the arms were about half the size.
Okay. You said spindly, so I did spindly.
Yeah.
When the hell did I draw
This
that?
was a long time ago you did this.
I did this September 19th, 2023.
Oh, not that long ago.
Yeah.
But
I'll be right back.
I love
guys.
that. Thank you for telling that story. I love that story, Dave. That's like one of my favorite. That's one of my
I've always
favorite
wanted to
all-time
draw
stories.
that guy. So I wonder if that was, maybe I drew that when you were on the show, Varla.
I think you might have, because I frequently make Dave tell that story because it's one of the most unique. It's really one of the most unique stories.
Do you like his mossy chest hair?
I do. I love his mossy chest hair, and actually, I totally have a bunch of like weird. I've got a bunch of moss creatures actually that if the conversation goes that way, I've got some
You should do it.
mossy things to.
That's my booster, and the only well, I have like 2 Christmas things. It's that little piece of cardboard, and I have a cheesy little Christmas ornament. Otherwise, it's all like bones and things like that, and it's like Christmassy. So,
Are you familiar with the Golden Bough? Do you know about the books, the Golden Bough books?
Is that a monster of some sort?
It's pretty obscure, actually. Like, it's not super extremely obscure, but it's the Golden Bough is essentially this collection of I think probably like mid 19th century, so 1800s, and it's a collection of books written by this Scottish folklorist, occultist guy whose last name is Fraser, and I just totally spaced his first name. So it's kind of like they are the foundational works that a lot of today's occult teachings are sort of based on. Like, anyone who says that they aren't drawing from the Golden Bough are basically they are, and they just don't know it, basically, more or less. It's typical, kind of like there's a lot of like weird ethnocentric stuff in it because it's from the mid 1800s and it's a Scottish guy.
Is it like bough?
Bough.
Tree limb?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
Okay,
the only reason I'm telling you this is because I got home the other day and there was a file box on my doorstep. You know, like the kind of box you get when you get fired or whatever. You know, in the movies, you get fired, you have to put all your belongings into that box.
Yeah.
And I lifted up and it was like really heavy. And it's from my friend Chris in San Francisco. And I'm like, wow, if this is books, that's very exciting because he's got exquisite taste. He's a real horror movie guy. So I open it up, and it is a complete set. So there's 12 books. It's a complete set. They're in pristine condition. They're beautiful. They're like green with gold lettering. I'll grab one in a second and bring it over here. But just like absolutely exquisite. Plus 2 books on witchcraft, one by Margaret Murray, who was a anthropologist, and then I forget what the other one was, but it was 2 books on witchcraft, also old books, like from. So I think these were printed in the early 1900s, maybe the 1930s. I can't remember what it said. It was in like Roman numerals, so I had to like really like figure it out. If it's not an
You should
X,
send me a picture of them.
yeah, if it's not an X, I have to like, okay, an X, I know, all right. But anyway, so yeah, I just got this incredible collection of books, and I don't know how he came upon them. They're pretty rare, and these are in like pristine condition. So at this point, I have made up about 15 different scenarios of how he came upon these books, including like trading his soul to the devil in some kind of like creepy bookstore in the, you know, in the Tenderloin or something in San Francisco. Like I'm like really like, and he's
They still allow smoking in that bookstore?
that's the bookstore they still allow smoking in, exactly. So yeah, I'm just like waiting. So he is in the middle of producing like this big haunted house thing. So he's not currently available. So I kind of been texting him, and I just keep texting him all these scenarios that are like my guesses of where these books came from. But I won't probably hear from him for a good another week. There's those people you don't expect them to kind of like text you back immediately. But anyway, it was absolutely, I was shocked, completely shocked, not expecting it, delighted, and still kind of in awe and not really entirely sure where I'm like, are these from a movie set?
Right. 10 seconds, guys. 10 seconds. Thank you to Sandra, Mama Catherine, and Bigfoot Rob for the super chats. And here we go, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And what do we got tonight? I forgot to bring it up. Son of a gun. How dare I? How dare I not be prepared? Hold on. We'll get it. We'll get it right now. Wang'em. Wang'em is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Varla Ventura continues with our cryptid world here on the show as she comes on once a month to talk about this weird, strange monsters that walk among us. Her website, varlaventura.net, and you can get her bookstore or her books at any major bookstore or on her website, which we highly recommend to add to your collection. Varla, thank you for coming in.
Why, thank you for having me.
Now, why do you love that story so much that I just told at the end of the hour about that?
I know, I love that story. You tell me that story like 2,000 times and I'll never get tired of it. It's so unique. I really have not heard of many people seeing something like that. And it's so unique. And I love it. I mean, it's just, it's authentic. It's like a amazing little thing that you saw. I love that your son was with you. And the way I just got this you just get this great image of like, here you are, you're walking along and then you see this thing, it sees you and it's kind of like, and then it just takes off, It's incredible. And I've actually, since the first time you told me that story, I have wondered and wondered and wondered what the equivalent of that would be. Like, we may never know what that creature's name is, but I've looked high and low trying to find something that would fit that description. And I know I will. I've come upon a couple of things that I have for you tonight, but not exactly, not quite exactly the same thing, but certainly woodland dwelling and certainly sort of barkish or covered in moss and things like that. So, yeah.
The one thing that I left out of that story that I remember very, very much is the fact that it was blurry. It was blurry. Okay. And we talk about them having this vibration, these creatures having this vibration, and it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. That does. It does. That totally tracks, right? Like it's kind of slipping through, and then it realizes you can see it. And then it's like, oh, I thought it was
like it was literally walking along like a do type of walk. And then all of a sudden it kind of stopped, looked at me. And like I said, it was only about 18 inches tall, like maybe 2 feet tall at its tallest. And it was just like, do. Oh, crap. Human. Vroom. Gone. Like, just, it was that quick.
Well, Pugwidgeys are like about that tall too. I know they're not necessarily the same part of the country. They're more East Coast, but they're sort of about 18 inches, 2 feet tall, and frequently, there's forest dwelling creatures that shapeshift. Though they can shapeshift into other animals and things like that. So suddenly they're a porcupine, or suddenly they're, a skunk, or something that you think you see it and then you don't. And that's another thing that's so cool about that story. It didn't really change. It just took off, which is just like, it probably, I mean, it was like I always say about spiders, I'm a spider lover, and the spiders are usually more afraid of you than you are of them, right? Some people are afraid of spiders. But like you catch it, it kind of sees you, and then it just makes me think that there's something to the idea of it, like all of the whatever we can perceive with our limited sight didn't fully manifest yet, and hadn't quite gotten to that, the fact that it was blurry. I find that, it's great detail.
Yeah, it's still an incredible one-off that I've never seen again. And I've had, one of my friends here a number of years ago, she had this little Ewok type creature. She was walking with her laundry basket into her laundry room. And all of a sudden this little Ewok type creature came walking out of her laundry room. And then they stopped. It kind of made a little eep type sound, and it took off back into the laundry room. And the laundry room was no bigger than like a the old school 70s bathroom where all you had was the toilet and the sink.
Yeah, I have a couple of those.
That would be the equivalent size of her laundry. And there was a closet. So you entered the door, and if you went to the left, there was a closet there. And she watched it kind of run back and turned to the left, so it would have went into the closet, and it was gone, vanished. And she said she swore that this creature was as physical as could be, and it looked like a little Ewok. Now, I have had people over the years on this show claim that they have encountered or interviewed people who have encountered these little Ewok type creatures,
like kind of like a little gremlin-y type thing,
but cute. And I found it very, very intriguing, Yeah.
Until you pour water on them.
Right. But I don't know what that was. Don't know why it would, there was some portal in her closet that it disappeared to.
Oh, I feel like laundry rooms are just portals. Like I have a basement laundry room, and 100% convinced it's a portal. And I convinced the first night I stayed in this house, I had a dream that it was a portal. And I was like, all right, laundry room portal. That's okay. You know, it's okay. You only spend a couple minutes in there at a time, right? Shove it in, turn it on. You know, you'll come back out, come back in a little bit and throw it in the dryer and you're good. This is not a place to dwell.
Right. Right. I don't know. You know, I mean, who hangs out in the laundry room first and
I mean, if
foremost?
I had like a really nice laundry room, maybe I would like hide out in there with a book. I wouldn't be doing laundry.
That's
So,
very true.
okay, so Dave, this actually I only learned about this yesterday actually because
Okay.
I was so the way the way that I'm researching this book, the way this book idea even came to me was I actually had this book idea when I was working on the Fairies, Pookas, and Changelings book, which is the collection of all kinds of like creatures. And as I was sort of like organizing that, you know, William Butler Yeats sort of created this kind of like taxonomy of fairies. You had the woodland dwelling, the sea dwelling, the ones that lived in meadows, the ones that lived in forests. And it kind of, you know, that's sort of how he collected all of that folklore and organized it. And that was, you know, and recorded that the lexicon. So as I was kind of putting these things together for the other book, I was thinking about how, you know, they do tend to, you know, you got your water spirits and your wood spirits and all of that. And I noticed certain plants in particular that would like come up again and again. Now, I'm a big plant nerd and also have been very interested in like, you know, botany and ethnobotany and sort of like, or, you know, the stories behind the stories, like why is the plant named that, all that kind of stuff. So when I would see a plant in a story, it would mean something more to me. A lot of times, especially with the translations, those choices were made very deliberately. You know, a yellow rose suddenly becomes a white rose because we're trying to make sure that all women are chaste, that type of thing. So anyway, I was having a lovely romp in this beautiful collection of Russian folklore, actually, that I just got this big volume for the library. And a lot of them I had actually, they were familiar, you know, your Baba Yaga and the, you know, the witch in the forest. But I actually came upon this creature that I had not heard of before, and you may have heard of it. Someone out there no doubt has. But it's sort of the counterpart to the domovoi. Now, the domovoi I'm quite familiar with. The domovoi is sort of the Slavic house spirit. And like a banshee or other spirits, it's inherited. It's usually passed down from family to family. And it's a protective spirit. It lives behind the stove and you kind of give it a few things, little yummy treats, and it protects especially children and animals. It really looks over the household. So that's the domovoi. Domovois are frequently like male or have a masculine identity. So there's this thing called a kikamora. And I had never heard of this before. And a kikamora is also a house spirit, a Slavic house spirit, but it comes from the forest. And when it comes from the forest, it brings with it its wild nature. So sometimes the illustrations depict it as being covered in sort of looking like the arms are made of bark or made of twigs, looking like there's two kinds. There's a forest dwelling one and there's a swamp dwelling one. And the swamp dwelling one tends to come out with like more like mossy kind of peat stuff all over it. The forest dwelling one sometimes is has like chicken legs, which is a Baba Yaga thing. That's a repeated element in Slavic folklore, specifically related to witches and witchcraft. So there's this kind of like supernatural element to this creature. So there's some chicken association, but sometimes it's covered in bark, and that's how it sort of sneaks into the household. So that made me think of you instantly, right?
Mhm.
And then the other thing about it, it's very interesting, and I had never heard this before, but it frequently has a dog face,
A dog face.
a snout. Some accounts will attribute it to a pig. Some accounts will attribute it to having a beak. There's chicken-like elements. It's also thought to shapeshift and can appear as a beautiful woman or an older woman who is like sort of harmless and kind, which reminds me completely of the banshee. The banshee can also appear as this like, sweet-looking maiden that then transforms into this like hideous creature that screams the imminence of death into your face. So anyway, so this Kikamora, and then the thing is they're not necessarily evil. Like I really, really love this about them. They're actually they respond to the nature of the head of the household. So if the head of the household is a jerk, they're jerks. But if the head of the household is a kind, generous soul, then they are kind and generous. So unlike the Domovoy, which really sort of like aims to protect no matter what, well, maybe not no matter what, but that's the goal. The Kikamora is more inclined to punish, or it can be very mischievous and even quite damaging in the household. So you don't necessarily want this. Like the Domovoy, everybody has, they want, they protect, they offer, they give food for. It's an accepted part of the household. The Kikamora is a little bit more dreaded from what little I know about them, because again, I just sort of like stumbled on this creature. But I love the shape-shifting aspect of it. The dog nose, that actually led me down this whole other rabbit hole with other creatures that have nothing to do with werewolves or what we think of as traditional dogmen sighting. Completely different part of the world. And these shape-shifting creatures that have a dog-like snout. So she is one of them. And then so like I said, there were two kinds. There's the woodland dwelling one, and then there's the swamp dwelling one, or the like bog dwelling one. And those are frequently covered in moss. So then that led me to there's many accounts of moss people or moss creatures. There's entire stories. In fact, the Grimm brothers collected stories about the moss people in Germany and how they would sort of appear out of the forest and you wouldn't realize they were there. And then they would come out and they're like little people that are completely covered in moss, and moss is hanging off of them. And they're, sort of dwarf-like, or kind of look as if they've come up out of the forest floor, is sort of how I imagine them. So yeah, the bark thing though, this creature, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what I don't know if that's what you saw, but the fact that it's the only thing I've ever seen that specifically describes, bark or being covered in kind of, forest matter as it goes by. I know yours was a little bit more of like a living twig, but still.
It's still one of the weirdest thing I've seen.
Yeah.
It really is one of the weirdest things I've seen. And I don't know to this day what it was. I don't know if I'll ever see it again. And it's weird. I haven't been on that trail since.
Oh, you've never been back on that trail?
No, I actually have not. And I find that maybe something that I should do, but I just haven't.
Is it just life that has gotten in the way, or did you do you not want to go back on that trail?
No, it's complete laziness, to be blunt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I understand. I get it. Life has gotten in the way.
Yeah.
Not like you're afraid.
Like if I had a bike, it would be a great bike trail to ride, but walking.
You're not going to see you're not going to see a little like like walking twig on a bike, though, Dave.
True.
You got to be like
Very true.
boots on the ground for that.
Oh, very true. Very true. Okay, so I'll give you that one. You know, we talk about the mountain monsters or forest monsters. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is there is legend that if you hear your name being called in the forest, never go to it, because the little people who protect the forest could be tricksters. They could be either very kind to you or very deadly towards you if they feel that you are somebody who is taking advantage of the forest. Have
Mhm.
you ever researched reports where people were being called into the forest?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've heard stories, I've read stories, I've written a few stories about that exact, yeah, like a very convincing sound. Sounds like someone, hey, help, or hey, you over there, and it sounds like someone calling your name. And I think it's a test, is what I think it is. And I absolutely agree. Um, Fairies by nature are tricksters. Many of the woodland dwelling creatures in particular are tricksters. And it's very easy to take a human who's out there roasted marshmallows and confuse them by a couple little sound bites that pull them into the wrong direction. There's also the theory that it's not just like a fairy creature, that it might be some other kind of entity, could be some kind of haunting. But absolutely, I've heard that many, many times. I think people have actually experienced that in their own homes from time to time. Of the voice of your child's calling you, and then you realize that no one's home. I hear those stories a lot on the Jim Harold's campfire stories. I hear those all the time. People saying they hear, like, it sounds like their partner or something is home and they're calling them, and then there's actually no one there, and then the partner pulls up or the car pulls into the driveway right then. But yeah, and I think, I mean, it is, there's that trickster element. It could be, I would say, if that happens to you, well, don't follow it, but don't follow it because it could be luring you into some sort of, underground trap you'll never get out of. That's one reason not to follow it. But the other reason would be you might want to reassess what you're doing. If you're hearing a voice like that that's sort of trying to like trick you, you might want to like just check yourself and check your surroundings and like realize, am I doing something totally jerky? Is this fire about to get out of control? Is did I leave my trash? Is my car still right? The things like that. Because I think you're right. I think you really hit it, that the idea that especially playing tricks on someone who isn't really respectful of the surroundings.
Our little people, well, there are rumors that the little people will take their victims, if we can say that, take them into inner earth where they are never seen again.
Yeah, I mean that's very similar to what happens in like Irish mythology. The like you come back and you're so changed you can't function anymore. So that's or everyone's dead. That's Rip Van Winkle right there. He falls asleep, he wakes up, and it's like everything he knows is gone.
1 minute to go. Let's go to Doc's question. Varla, do's and don'ts for the little people: acceptable gifts, tobaccos, gems, etc.
Yeah, well, so I would say that with anything that you're offering to the fairy realm, it should be of an organic nature. So it shouldn't be plastic or something that can actually degrade and might cause problems for like birds or whatever. So you just be mindful of that. Stones are a great option. They do like shiny things, so coins. So it doesn't have to be not man-made. I know I just said organic, but like not like coins and things like that are a lovely offering. Jewelry, anyone can attest that the house fairies tend to like take your the one earring or whatever. So things like that. Other great offerings are like wine, bread, flowers. There's something you said earlier, Dave, about the kind of like fairy gardens in your neighborhood that I just want to get back to.
Let's continue with Doc's question. When we return, we have Varla Ventura for another half an hour here on Spaced Out Radio. VarlaVentura.net is her website. We will return on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear.
Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. Oh, thank you, CS. Very much appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to take a super quick
You go.
Yeah.
You go. I'm going to zoom in on Dirty here. I can work the claw marks out, no problem.
Because remember, we went to the Dogman and Sasquatch Auto.
Das Auto. I get it.
Dogman and Sasquatch. And
very nice.
For our German listeners, the Auto.
You are
Dogman and Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm
here's okay, hold on, Dave. Look at the building continues on, and there's a Mothman on top of it.
I see what you did there.
Sneaky.
I see what you did there. That's very, very good. Very,
so
very
that
good.
way I can hang both of the pictures beside each other and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him wiping the grease off there, or is it blood?
I think that's grease. Maybe a little 5W30 oil in there too.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to get that WD-40 in Canada much longer. Oops, missing something here, Dave.
I like the black triangle too.
What are we talking about?
What am I talking about?
It's the black triangles, Dave. Swamp gas.
Oh yes, I like it. Swamp gas.
Swamp gas. I had to add a little bit of dirt on the windows because it's grimy. It's workshop. My advice is to not buy any of the snacks off the cooler. Those sandwiches, don't touch them, Dave.
No, never touch. If you're buying a sandwich in a garage shop, you're only causing yourself trouble. That's all I'm saying.
We used to take the bus to Vancouver, and I think it was, I don't know, Hope or something like that. No, not really good with Vancouver, Dave. Nonetheless, Greyhound would stop there, and it was this little place that had all these arcade machines. And my friend ate one of the sandwiches from there.
Oh.
And he was the only guy from, I can't remember where the hell it was. Anyways, all the way to Chilliwack. He was the only guy in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I warned him.
Yeah, you don't want to sit in a bus toilet. That's for sure.
Oh, especially if you fall in. Oh.
No, that's terrible. Never mind the crabs that are probably crawling around there, Terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Varla is back.
Hi, Varla. Hi, Dave.
I think she actually put more lipstick on.
I did, because it all came off from blowing these balloons. Bills, are you going to Reno?
Possibly.
Okay. I see.
Possibly.
I don't think I'm old enough to go there, to be honest. I think you're going to be like 60 plus before they even let you in the gate.
Yeah. There's a few young people there.
I gotta add a couple 7 years to my ID card to just push 50.
Oh, shush.
Yeah, you baby.
You get a free Spaced Out Radio walker when you go there.
Why?
Balloon. It's got to have an alien head on it.
Oh, I hear you. I may not get it, but I hear you.
Or is
Right. I've reached my balloon quota for the night. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 balloons. Pretty good. Multitasking.
did you put like little like prize tickets in them?
That would have been smart. I'm sure my animals are all going to destroy them. There's nothing a 13-year-old boy wants less than his mom decorating with like banners and balloons. So I'm
Make sure you
doing it.
sing for him too.
But also it's like they want it, but they don't. So
I hear you. Hold on, guys. 15 seconds. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Mama Catherine, Rob, and CS for the super chats. Appreciate the love and support. Here we go with the next half.
Good night, pals.
Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you tuning us on in as we talk monsters with Varla Ventura tonight. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Final time tonight, we say hello to Varla Ventura, her website, varlaventura.net, and we're talking monsters here in the forest. And right before the break, Doc from Wyoming had a question about the do's and don'ts of what we should do for forest dwellers, for the little people, to make sure that we're not upsetting them. First Nations wise, they make them little hats, and they give candy and a lot of edibles like cookies and other sweets and treats in order to try and treat them from getting upset, and that way they'll bring back their stuff.
yeah, that's a frequent that's oft repeated. Cakes, wine, cream. That's especially for the sort of more, house ones that might come into your house, or that you're trying to make sure they return your things or protect your home and your animals and your livestock and your crops and all of that, or your garden. Absolutely, nice little treats. Now, you said something in the very beginning of the show, Dave, about kind of in your neighborhood how people have fairy gardens, and how they'll sort of you sort of leave it a little bit wilder, and you have more flowering plants or things there. And I think it's just a very interesting, like what that does in terms of the environment is it actually brings in pollinators, it attracts beneficial insects, it actually helps your garden, and it helps, the things you're cultivating, even your lawn. It helps all of those things to sort of thrive and survive. And so it's very interesting to me that the way that we make these offerings, these kind of like natural dwelling things, that fairies are attracted to gardens, and that fairies are attracted to flowers. Now, we know from previous Spaced Out radios that when we're talking here about the fairy kingdom, we're not just talking about little things that flit from flower to flower. But there are garden dwelling fairies, and there are beneficial fairies that you can attract to your garden. So that's one kind of fairy, right? But it's just interesting because the fairy gardens, they serve this dual purpose. But then is it a dual purpose, or is it the same purpose? And the same purpose is really just to kind of like on the one hand, you're embracing the magic and really trying to connect with the magic of it. But on the other hand, what you're really trying to do is say, hey, nature, I see you. I see you. I love you. I love all your creatures, supernatural and otherwise, right? And that's you are in a sense making an offering. So to that point, having a place where they can go is kind of essential, right? Because when you attract these creatures to your garden and you let them know that they have, or to your home, and you let them know that they have a safe place and that they have respect and reverence, they in turn will protect you. That's why we have garden gnomes, because they're there as symbols of protection. They're there as symbols of, protecting the harvest, the crops, the people. Almost every culture has some kind of small effigy of a creature that lives naturally in the forest or the ground that they put at their doorstep or they make offerings to, because it is beneficial to all, really. It's beneficial to your family. It's beneficial to your garden. But I think making a place for them is probably quintessential, and just that acknowledgement, really, because that I think also does something for us that's beneficial mentally, right? It reminds us that no matter how crappy of a day you have, it reminds you that there's a real strong chance that fairies are real, and that is going to get you to the next day.
What is the difference between, say, what little people do and, say, a gnome or a troll?
So some vernacular will describe like little people or the good people as members of the fairy kingdom. What William Butler Yeats would call the trooping fairies, or sort of like the goblins and the leprechauns and the sort of like what we might think of as the little people that kind of troop over the land. So I'm sorry, I kind of forgot what your question was, because I just heard
The difference between the little people, gnomes, and trolls.
yeah. Right. So usually the difference is like where you might find them. So trolls by nature and by like folkloric record tend to dwell near water, bridges, and large stones. They frequently, although they can be in other places, like a lot of the Scandinavian literature has trolls appearing on like mountainsides, just like in the middle of things. And sometimes the word troll is used interchangeably to mean any kind of like hobgoblin-y, goblin-y creature that cavorts with witches at the Sabbath, right? Like it's actually like you do actually see that word troll. I think that lends itself to the idea that as people were sharing these stories and then they were being translated into English, you would just, like, the translator would just pick a word that they thought was closest. And so it might be troll, it might be puka, it might be fairy. But gnomes tend to, just as you might suspect, they do tend to be sort of protectors of gardens, forests, places like that. They are kind of more earth dwelling, so I think they like a good little nook. And then you've got your sort of things that you might put in like the dwarf or the coblin category. There are a lot of like cave dwelling fairy-like creatures that were thought to protect miners, or maybe protected the cave and the treasures therein. So they may be more associated with mountains, and then of course you've got all manner of things in the forests and things that also live in the water near wells or in the sea. My favorite, the mermaids. Those are like, there's all kinds of sea creatures, and actually by the stratification that William Butler Yeats put to paper, he wasn't the only one, he was just recording it, but the Merrow are part of the fairy kingdom. They are magical creatures that dwell in the sea, and they're members of the fairy kingdom.
Okay, I would be remiss to ask, and I know I've asked you this question before as we change topics here. Stairways in the forest.
Oh, I love that topic.
I love this topic because I'm the type of guy where if I saw one, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. I don't get scared by much, Varla, but those stairways in the middle of the forest scare me. There's something creepy about that thought.
I'm the type of gal that if I were to see one, I would absolutely approach it. And I've never seen one. So I'll report back or not. Maybe you'll never hear from me again if I do go up those stairwells. The interesting thing is I've heard a couple of times where people have said that they lead to a door. Now, I don't know if that's just what is kind of pops up when they're describing it, in their memory, or if they really are seeing a door. But that brings a little bit of a different element to it, because now you're talking about a door is very symbolic, right? Of like this sort of, being able to transport from one world to another. Now, if I were with like my kid or something, we probably still go poke the stairs. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know. They're creepy though. I really don't know what that phenomenon is. Is it real? Is it like an urban myth? Are people actually running into these things? Is anyone going up them? What's happening after that? I mean, there's like that super creepy suicide forest in Japan where people said that they go through this forest and then they get like completely just like distraught and possessed. And supposedly a couple of these have popped up there. But I don't know. Maybe that's just an internet rumor.
I don't know. I want it to be
have
true.
Have you ever? I know I want it to be true too, because it's like such a beautiful, creepy image, right? But I mean, if you just think about it, like just symbolically, stairs are a passage to a different floor, a different dimension. The real question is, do the stairs go up or do the stairs go down? Because you would think, oh, I'm going to get on these stairs and go up, but maybe you go down. And that's kind of a whole different. I know.
I've never even thought about it that way.
Now, like yeah. It's disturbing, right? I got to tell you, like, okay, this is fictional.
I'm sorry, you just kind of blew, as simple as that was, you just kind of blew my mind with that one. Because I'm just normally, you see a stairwell, you're going up. If it's pointing up, you're going up. But what if something was using it to come down?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Maybe it's not for us at all.
No.
I'll never forget this. So this was a short story that was made into like a really short film that I saw on like, public access TV late at night one time. And the story, because this is fiction. This isn't like somebody telling a story of what had happened to them, but it's so creepy. And it reminds me of the stairs. And I always think of that whenever I think of the stairs in the woods. So this couple, they go out, they leave the kid with the babysitter, and they go out to dinner, and the babysitter calls them because the power goes out. And so she calls the dad, and the dad's on the phone at the restaurant, and or maybe it's the kid that's home by themselves. I'm not sure if there's a babysitter. They're probably like 13, right? And they say, okay, all right, well, here's what you need to do. You got to go replace the fuse. So I'm just going to talk you through it, right? You just got to go down in the basement. The lights are all out. I'm really scared. Okay, just stay on the phone with me. Okay, there's 11 steps to the basement, and once you get there, you go left and you get to the fuse box. So just kids really scared, really scared. Okay, well, just count with me. So the kid starts counting. Okay, 1, 2, 3, right? So there's 10 steps getting down to the basement, and the dad's just counting it. Dad's in the restaurant counting with the kid, 10, and then you just hear the kid going 11, 12, 13, 14. Like the kid is just still going downstairs in this like creepy descending into darkness basement.
Ugh,
No, it's so scary.
that just gave me a chill.
Haunting, right? It's a haunting thought. Yeah.
Right. That is just absolutely creepy. We got about 9 minutes to go here. I got a couple audience questions for you.
Okay.
And let us go to Sandra. Is it true that iron and nickel repel fairies?
Mm-hmm. Yes, iron in particular. Fairies do not like iron. Fairies also don't care much for salt. Maybe the exception would be mermaids. So it's interesting because we cast circles a lot, trying to protect ourselves from like whatever, untoward entity might be out there. When we cast circles or when we purify something, we frequently use salt. If you want to do fairy work and you specifically want to call upon, like a woodland fairy to help you in your, whatever it is that you need done, you wouldn't want to use any salt. You wouldn't want to use iron. I'm not entirely sure about nickel. I know for sure iron, that you don't use those at all in your magical work. And you have to be really careful too, because a lot of people will use a wand or a dagger or something like that, that you have to make sure that nothing you're wearing has any kind of iron in it, because it really will I guess it repels fairies. On the flip side, if you want to protect your property and make sure, like, for example, if you want the property next door, you got a couple of nice iron nails and you kind of go over there under cover of night. I'm not encouraging illegal trespassing or anything, but under cover of night, you go in and you drive a couple of those nails into the four corners of the property, which would include your property, right? So you remove that property line, you might just find suddenly that piece of property's on the market for a steal.
For a steal.
Yeah. So iron comes in very handy, but yes, avoid it if you're if you want to work with fairies.
All right. Tony wants to know, Varla, have you ever heard of the little people stealing people's shadows? I've never heard of this.
Wow. Okay, I love your audience. It's a beautiful question. I love this imagery that pops into my mind of and actually, well, I've heard of it happening with Peter Pan, but as we know from much of what J.M. Barrie wrote about, and that is in Peter Pan, it was based heavily on Scottish folklore and beliefs. So it's within reason to guess that idea of fairies being able to steal someone's shadow probably came from old stories. I've never heard of that personally, but now I'm going to try and find out. So stay tuned for next month.
I think that's great. Okay, let's move on to another question here from Tony. Pardon me, Castle Dude in the UK. Why don't vampires like silver?
I think I've never really believed that. I think the garlic thing with vampires is more of a repellent. Now, if you've eaten and consumed enough garlic, which, by the way, yes, no,
Me too on the garlic.
if you go down that I've been down the garlic rabbit hole lately, and rereading all of the passages in Dracula where he doesn't bring whole cloves of garlic. He brings garlic flowers to Lucy's room to try and like ward off the Dracula, who's obviously like sucking the life out of her. I don't really remember anything about vampires not liking silver, and I might just be completely forgetting that. I know that they don't like mirrors, and so silver used to be used. That's what actually used to make a mirror shiny. Now it's just like a paint, but you put a silver paint on the back of a piece of glass, and you make a looking glass, and that would be repellent to vampires, so they don't like to look at their own reflection. I think they just like to think they look a lot better than they do. They've been roaming the earth for 500 years, feeding on rodents. You're just not going to look your best.
I get it. Let's we're kind of.
I mean, I like silver, just for the record.
Werewolves don't like silver either.
No, but there is like the silver bullet thing with werewolves, and I think it, in my mind, like a lot of times when like with the silver, that really would have been sort of a rare and precious metal, and so I think the effort that it took to create that would be enough to imbue it with enough magic to repel the evil creature or the entity or whatever. I mean, this is just guessing from like how the story goes time and time again. But all the vampires I know prefer silver to gold, actually.
Right. I think that's amazing. I really do. We got 3.5 minutes left with you tonight. Before we leave the forest and this topic for another, do you believe there are trolls under bridges?
Yes, I think that trolls under bridges, I don't think that they're exclusive to bridges, but I think they're protecting spirits. And a bridge is something that really, really needs protection. You've got rushing water underneath. You may have, sort of dangerous water creatures like mermaids, like the Ruscalis, that is like kind of trying to reach up, like the Lorelei, that are trying to pull you into the river. And trolls have this like lovely role of kind of being a guardian of the river and also a guardian of anything that crosses it. So the idea of like, who's that trip-trapping over my bridge, that comes from old beliefs that there was something that would keep watch and make sure that anyone crossing over the bridge belonged there and wasn't going to be harmed and wasn't doing harm.
We're not talking some sort of hunchback of Notre Dame here.
So some of the Scandinavian trolls were actually, the descriptions of them are more like the Nephilim. Like they're these almost angelic, like 6-foot tall creatures that can shapeshift and turn into, ironically, like balls of yarn and other sort of like domestic items on the quick, but that they were very sort of ethereal and had, almost clear hair, like so blonde that it was almost clear, very beautiful and shimmery and sort of angelic like. And other places we have trolls that sort of fit more into the rocky crags and kind of have that description that they look a little bit more like a beast that sort of literally crawled out from under a rock. So it's actually quite varied. The Scandinavian trolls are just, they're always kind of mind-blowing to me because they're just depicted as, stunningly beautiful, and also could be called upon to bless marriages and bless like households and babies, and very different approach to the idea of what a troll is. But again, here we have a word that could very well mean fairy or other creature, or I've met people in Ireland who refer to all fairies as Pookas. Whereas I kind of look at as a puka as a specific kind of fairy, but puka is sort of used as an interchangeable term for, all kinds of trickster, the good people out there,
I'm hearing you loud and clear right now.
You're
Loud
picking up what I'm laying down, Dave.
always. Varla, thank you again
Oh,
for coming on Spaced Out Radio, and happy birthday tomorrow to your beautiful son. I know he's your world, and make sure you give him a big hug from all of us here at Spaced Out Radio. We very much appreciate
thank
you coming on in again, Varla. We'll see you next month.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here. I'll see you next month.
VarlaVentura.net is her website, so make sure you go check out all of her books there or at any major bookstore. Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. The Travis Willier Moose will be here for the Cryptid Report. Space Out Radio continues after this. Morning, Dutch Hank. Thank you, Varla. I'll let you get some sleep now.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Good night.
That was fun tonight.
Yeah, that was really fun. I loved it. It was great.
All right.
Got to hear the walking twig story again, so I'm happy.
I know. Much love, dear. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, Paula Fost. How are you? I'll be right back, guys. Hi, Mad Kiwi. All right. We got Travis in the hopper. When you hear the beep, that means a guest has come in. Good to have you all here. Thank you for coming in tonight. Are we having fun? Everybody having fun tonight? Reminder, time is of the essence here. If you're coming to our Reno fan party, hi Gloria, how are you? Reno fan party, May 10th through 12th at the Silver Legacy Casino Resort in Reno, Nevada for the 3rd annual fan party. We want you there. Come meet our Keith Andrews, Tom Whitmore, Jim Goodall, Melinda Leslie, Jackie Harmon, Lee Strauss, Science Bob, Lala Bright, and many, many more. Geraldina Roscoe is going to be there. Merle is going to be there. You can meet Merle. There's Travis again. We got you, Travis. And we're going to have a great show. Friday at 3 p.m., our live radio show. That night, the VIP party. Next day, you could go with Merle to Virginia City for a ghost tour. Following that night with a UFO tour with Melinda Leslie. We're going to have a good time, everybody. And we want you there. Remember, we do this for you. All of our special guests are coming for you guys. Go to info@spacedoutradio.com, info@spacedoutradio.com, and get your tickets today. Hi, Lisa Smith. Here we go, everyone.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go, the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Right here, broadcasting all the woo we can to you. So I hope you are enjoying what you are hearing on tonight's show. Reminder to all of you. Actually, let's go like this. Thank you to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Wang'em. Wang'em is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. It's not uncommon for individuals to run away from their obligations. In 2006, U.S. Marine Lance Herring disappeared while hiking in El Dorado Canyon, Colorado. Lance had recently returned from Iraq and was expected to attend training at Camp Pendleton for potential redeployment the following month. Unfortunately, Lance never showed up and went into hiding. His friend, Steve Powers, assisted him in faking his disappearance. The search for Lance consumed numerous hours and cost thousands of dollars. Steve Powers initially claimed to have received assistance after Lance suffered a head injury from a fall. However, when law enforcement officials accompanied Powers to the scene, Lance was nowhere to be found. Powers eventually confessed to fabricating the disappearance, but not before an extensive search was conducted for the missing Marine. Lance was ultimately located in Washington State in 2008 and was charged with unauthorized absence. Lance confessed to authorities that he had orchestrated his own disappearance to evade being sent back to Iraq. Due to desertion, Lance was held in the Camp Pendleton brig for 33 days. In 2009, he agreed to a plea bargain offered by Boulder County that required him to complete 18 months of probation and continue receiving medical care for his head injuries in Iraq. And finally, we have John Darwin, the Canoe Man. Financial difficulties can be highly stressful for individuals and may cause some to contemplate disappearing to escape their problems. In March of 2002, John Darwin, a teacher and prison officer in England, went kayaking at Seaton Carew, but failed to attend work later that day. He was reported missing, but John was not found despite an extensive search of the 62 square miles of coastline. A double-ended paddle was discovered in the sea the following day, and his kayak wreckage was eventually located, leading authorities to presume he had perished. On December 1st, 2007, 5.5 years after being believed to have drowned in a canoeing accident, John surprised London's West End Central Police Station by walking in and announcing that he thought he was a missing person. However, his deceit was uncovered when pictures of him posing for a photo in Panama were discovered online. Before John's reappearance, a police investigation had already been initiated after a colleague of his wife, Anne, raised suspicions about her claim on her husband's life insurance policy and subsequent move to Panama. Why did John fake his death? The couple were allegedly in a financial bind.
And thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing for another great story here. You can find more at amongthemissing.com as well as on YouTube, Among the Missing. Make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell. Yeah, we love it. Steve's here every Monday through Friday night to kick off hour number 3. From the missing to the mysterious, let's talk some monsters. Travis William Moostus is here for the Cryptid Report. All right, Travis William Moostus, it's always a pleasure to see you. And the fresh new kitty is here as well. The incense is burning, making things very good in the studio here. Travis, thank you for coming on in, my man, and filling in for an ailing Robin Haynes tonight. Very much appreciate it.
Oh, yes. Like I said, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad to be here, and hope she gets well, and all things work out. And hello to the fans. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, so how's it going tonight, Dave?
Good, man. We have been actually talking with Varla Ventura about forest-dwelling creatures. Not Bigfoot or Dogman, but other little, talking about little people, talking about gnomes and trolls and wood nymphs and really what is creepy in the forest. Out of all the experiences that you have tracked down as a monster hunter, what's one of those weird stories that you have covered that we may not know about?
There's been a bunch of, like everything from the different kind of spirits out there to different kind of beings, like even like ancient beings of prehistoric times, like a lot of what I'm told from my older family members and stuff like that is like they talk a lot about like how a lot of elders mention that a lot of these beasts out there, like a lot of people think they're cryptids and stuff, but these are a lot of ancient beings from our past that have been long forgotten. And a lot of times they will show themselves to people who are capable of are ready for that, to see that kind of deal. Other than that, it's kind of they're usually like I said, beasts that would look very scary to us or very shocking to us. Different kind of animals that you're not expecting, like even some of the bears that you'd see from prehistoric times have long tails, right? So I was talking a little bit about this with my older cousin earlier tonight. So we're just talking about some of these ancient beasts and how they changed over time to look like what they look like now, right? And including the wolves and how they gotten smaller. They used to be way more bigger back in the times, and including all the animals too, like giant beavers. These things used to be massive in size, like size of like 12 feet tall, and but like out here we still have like a lot of like areas that are just totally cut off and that are very natural to the world and lands and landscapes. So like what you're mentioning there with the little ones, the little beings, they still run and roam free out there, including the little forest trolls and beings. There's been a lot of sightings over them from them over the years, especially the little trolls like that would mess with people and crops, and in fact still people say they still see them around and looking in windows and checking them out and creeping around the areas. And so, but like for me, the little people very much alive, very much out there, and like I said, I've had my own experiences with them and on numerous occasions, and so there's all that to be said.
What about superstition? Superstition with these creatures, like for instance, you're not supposed to upset a gnome because it could turn into a trickster and will always be kind of vengeful towards you. Little people the same way. And there's a lot of superstition that goes around the First Nations communities, and farmers are very superstitious about their land and their crops, and making sure that everything is done properly, so that way their crops yield a great crop. Superstition plays a big role in all of this, man. How do you figure it out?
All right. When it comes to when it's all depending on what the situation is. For ceremonies, little people do come around, and for higher frequency I should say beings that are out there and connected with the forest in that realm, the enchanted realms, that people like would encounter them just like on a one-to-one basis, and talking and existing with them, and they as for like when the little people bring you to their realms, it's very much different. Like the vibration is a very heightened vibration, so time speeds up there. When you're there, time speeds up out here, and sometimes you'll go back and it'll be a month or a week later. Just like I said, spending even an hour or two with them could be a couple days. So, but if you're existing with them on our level and you're talking with them, that's totally different. Like, it must be like a ceremony, or if you're meant to encounter them along the path, and there's probably something like offerings or things that need to be made. But but for the little guys that are like trolls and stuff, they're more like different, kind of like you don't want to, like, it's almost like a bad luck thing too, it could be, and you don't want to be offending them or making fun of them or laughing at them or any kind of like thing, like, because that's where it can get very like it can get kind of like get a little darker, right, in the sense of coming back, or in times and you're not expecting, and that's when you're gonna encounter them, or they'll trick you and call you into the woods and stuff, and and then you go missing or whatever. Never heard from them again, kind of deal. And same thing goes like with the little people though. Like, you can go missing with them, but like a lot of times it's because you're like if you're brought into their realm and stuff, you really do enjoy being there. Like, some people really do enjoy their time, so they just stay there. And with the other people coming back, right, it's been months or weeks, or sometimes it's during a ceremony, right, you'll go down there or you'll be with them, and you'll come back, and it'll be like the next day or two, like you'll be like the time has went by. And so it's very interesting, very high frequency. And
okay, another question that came up when Varla was chatting with us a little bit earlier, the vibration that causes a lot of these cryptid creatures to look blurry to us or on camera or recordings. What is this blurriness?
Oh, like the distortion in the camera and like the higher frequency. Yeah, it's because the camera's not fast enough to catch them. Like that's the reason why cameras are able to catch what they catch, is because they can snap at those like faster rates and picking up these frequencies and seeing that. But yeah, it's just like it's such a fast frequency, like a rate of frequency, that we just don't see it, but it's within us, or within our and around us, I should say. And yeah, so like sometimes cameras can and get lucky, but sometimes they're not. But
Right.
most times they're not.
So are the creatures putting out this internal vibration that if we were to look at them, or if they were to be filmed, that they would look blurry?
No, they're just like they're just a part of that that frequency rate, that higher frequency, and it's just a natural part of their existence and how they go about their I should say, just like their existence, their life. They're part of that frequency. So it's just us, and we're just a little bit on the other side of that, just a little bit lower. And normally, like as human beings, we would be just naturally, like I said, focused in frequency on that. But we just like as time went on, people just became more and less distant with it, you know what I mean? Like they kind of like tuned it out, you know, and thought of it as like I should say, they didn't really connect with it anymore. They kind of lost that connection. So
okay, so is it not a safety issue then, that these creatures kind of put out a vibration, you know, much like a skunk has its odor, or Sasquatch has the alleged odor and pungence to its smell?
yeah, well, I know, for example, like when it's definitely like on a spiritual, like higher, like, you know, spirits or supernatural, then it's just like their energy is just so much for the camera, it can't handle it. Like, you know, it's not even a defensive thing. But as for like ETs and extraterrestrials, they'll do that. They'll just they'll heighten the frequency just to mess with the camera, so they can't get picked up. Bigfoots and similar, I think it's just their energy when they know they're getting, like, you know, something's like, you know, doing that, or they just tend to go in the frequency and just hop out, and cameras barely capture them, or same thing like with how should I say it? Even like I said, like the ETs and stuff. Like I said, if they want to be seen, they'll show themselves. Like if it's meant to be, like it's easy for someone to get the camera out, or get them on camera. Like say for the one there, my friend had a nice image of his. It must have been like a family member, but they were standing in the back of the kitchen, and they had like a cat in their arms, and they were passed away, like coming there to visit, like, and they had a cat in their arms, like, so like obviously they wanted to be seen and taken a picture of, to know that they were there visiting. Like, so like there's stuff that will make themselves more available to that frequency if it's needed, or it can be seen. Other ones are doing it for different attention, right, to freak you out, and then they fester off that or latch onto that kind of deal. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Now, when they go into this vibration frequency, are they also darn near invisible to other predatory animals?
Actually, no, because other animals and other like natural beings of this earth are part of that energy already, because they're already part of that. Like, they're so natural, like they connect with all the frequencies of everything around, and they see that stuff. Like they'll see the orbs, they'll see the other, like they'll see Sasquatches, they'll see the other, like other cryptids and things out there. You know, it's just us. We became blind to it, like, you know, through our own neglect and our own I should say insight and our connections. Like, it's a lot of people lost a lot of that, like, because they just chose not to, you know. But it's there, the world's there, it's there for us to reconnect and there to see and become one with again. But it's like it's up for us to make that choice and that connection, right? Like, it's always it's there. It's just people have to make that connection again and find it.
Are the smaller cryptids more dangerous than the bigger cryptids, such as Bigfoot or Dogman?
Yes, and yes and no, and yeah, some of the, like the most strongest ones are the smaller ones, and like when it comes to like animal spirits and things like that, and yeah, like when it comes to like Dogman and all these other cryptids and interesting beings out there that are I should say interacting with our frequencies and are within our world, and having these encounters with different individuals at times and places. Like it's varied in kind of like how they've acted, and but like some of the worst like ones have been like on that supernatural level, where they've like been able to haunt a person like in their mind, and then also haunt the place and the building, and then haunting the whole like being able to, when you're doing the thing in there and clearing them out, they actually, you know, animate into like in our dimension and start running around on the walls and running through the wall, like the doors, and you know, like breaking windows and things around the house and stuff. And but it's like you know, it all depends on the situation when things you know, things are happening, right? So that's all I have to say about that.
We got about 4 minutes to go here on the Cryptid Report with Travis William Moostus filling in for an ailing Robin Haynes tonight. As we delve deeper into the forest, we see, you know, little signs of things that could be roaming around, whether it's mushrooms or little doorways or anything. What signs have you noticed being out in the forest that you have seen that have made you think, oh, I'm in a different area here. I'm in an area where maybe I shouldn't be due to the forest dwelling creatures?
Yeah. So one time we're out there, and it was a very interesting place. Like we were walking in the woods, and like this place, nobody really goes or has anything to do with anyone, right? So we're out there, we're just looking around for some wild game, and after some time, it was like there was all of a sudden these like it was just like an old ancient site, like a bunch of I should say like rags and effigies and stuff like that were around, and like a different kind of like it was like a little like old school, like it looked like a very different kind of ceremonial place. And I was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be here. Like, I don't think this is the right time or place for this, you know what I mean, kind of deal. And then we left, and then we tried to go look for it again, and it was gone. It was not there. Like, it was like the place never existed. Like, there was no cutout round circle or round area where these places were set up or anything. Like, it was like a mystical, like it was just all of a sudden it was there and it wasn't there anymore. And we're a lot younger. Like I was probably like 14, 15 years old at the time. And my nephew that was with me was like a little bit younger, like probably like 9 years old, 10 years old. Like, you know what I mean? We're just out in the woods. But yeah, these, sometimes these places are, like I said, they're mystical and enchanted, and you know, next thing you know, you'll be walking in the woods and all the plants around you are a lot more taller, and trees are a lot more taller. And you realize that you entered a little person realm, and you're like, oh, here we go, you know, and then you walk out and you're like, okay, you know, and it's sundown's almost happening, you know, it's like, so there's these times when it does happen, and things do take place.
Nice. Nice. I got a question about that though. How does one know if they're in an area where, say, little people live or gnomes live?
All right. Usually it's like an untouched, untapped zone area, like where people don't normally go. They have homes. They do have homes, and they do have little like areas. Like you'll see, like you might find a home, and I recommend don't break it, or don't even touch it. Like don't even go try to knock on the door or go see them or anything. Just like don't even bother, because you could offend it or offend them, and so that's like the worst thing you can do. And then, you know, you're trying to ask for someone for help or prayers and things, right? And the right thing to do. But especially don't take anything that they might have out there or anything, right? Like that's kind of like one of the biggest things is don't ever disrespect them. Just let them be and let them live. And they live along, like I said, like natural areas, waters and lakes, and at one time they did live right along the riverbanks and stuff like that, and they had a lot of fights, a lot of the swans during every spring, and they had a lot of fights with a lot of the birds. But eventually they moved more inland in the woods and next to our people, and that's how we were known to meet with them. And they needed a lot of little clothes and things like that over the time. So like I've made clothes for them, and it's kind of funny. Like it's kind of cool. Like when you make a little something for them, and they come and take it or pick it up. And so it's kind of nice.
Travis Williams, thank you for filling in tonight on the shortened version of the Cryptid Report for Robin Haynes, who is sick. Appreciate your time. Coming up next, it is the Dave 101 and Strange News of the Week. All mixed in the final half hour of tonight's program. This is Spaced Out Radio.
Yeah.
Nice and quick there, buddy.
Woo! Always an awesome time, dude. So thanks for having me once again.
All right, buddy. We will talk to you on Tuesday, bud.
All right, buddy. Take care. Have a great night, everyone. See you then.
All right. Travis Williams, yes, he does live on reserve. He's from the Cree Nation. Hi, Lex Diaz. Get off my lawn, man. Get off my lawn. Thank you, Major Lee, for that amazing super chat. Sandra Kincaid, thank you. Mama Catherine, thank you. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, thank you. CS, thank you. Did I miss any? No, I didn't miss any. Thank you. Trying to improve my posture, and I keep wanting to sit up straight. Posture is good. Excuse me, guys. Dave Gomey, Dave will announce and get off my lawn. No, I've got another topic again. We got a couple minutes left. If you see me kind of just sitting here quiet, I'm trying to put my Dave 101 together in my head. Yes, we got snow a couple times today and a little bit of hail. My hair looks nothing like untamed poodle hair. It's not curly. Mm-hmm. Do you still get a perm like Bob Ross there, Lex Diaz? It is lovely hair, Castle Dude. When you get to Reno, I'll let you run your fingers through it. How about that? Unless it's gelled up. All right, everybody, here we go. Our Keith Andrews tomorrow night, by the way. Here we go. High Cliff Sigh. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. We're going to get into the Dave 101 momentarily. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us. I want to remind all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, all of our archives are always free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where I yell at everybody to get off my lawn. Why? Because it's the Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
Oh, how y'all doing out there? You know, a lot of people get into podcasting, UFO type of YouTube channels, paranormal channels, cryptid channels, because they have an interest in this subject. They want to talk about it. They love talking about it. They want to be a part of a community that understands what they are all about. Myself included, as not only a journalist, I always love being on the radio, but as an experiencer, I'm trying to find out answers to what happened to me. That's the selfish portion of what I do on a nightly basis. That's why I interview people, talk to people, try and get their opinions of what's going on. But one of the things I also like is I love a great story. I love hearing about people's encounters, about what they've experienced, and about what they have seen. And look, I know that Spaced Out Radio is not very scientific. I'm not a scientist. Never have been, never claimed to be. I'm a journalist by trade and experiencer by night. But so many podcasts out there regarding our topics. It brings a lot of information to what people want to do. And a lot of people have their own way of what they want to do and what they want to say. There's some podcasts and shows out there that are highly critical of people in the UFO field. There are those out there who just want to learn. There are those out there who have opinions and they don't want to stray off their opinion. And so what they do is they bring in a bunch of friends and they all chat about the topics at hand. really, there's a lot of good stuff out there for anybody to enjoy, whether it's on any podcast network like Streama or Spotify or iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, you name it. Even Rumble and BitChute can have some great topics with great hosts as well. And I compliment those people, even though I do personally think there's way too many shows. I do compliment those people who are hosting those shows because it's not easy. Not everybody can talk in front of a microphone. Not everybody can sit there and give a strong argument for their opinion. Yes, everybody tried hard. No, not everybody's gone to broadcasting school or journalism school or radio school. Nobody's really done that. Very few have that are in our field. But it's a way to connect with people. We see a lot more famous people taking on podcast rules, from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Joe Rogan to Howie Mandel and, a lot of people in between. Famous people find it's a way to kind of talk about what's going on in their lives and connecting with their fans to keep their popularity up. That's great. But we're focused on our generation and our genre here. UFOs, paranormal, supernatural, cryptids, and the sort. But what has been infesting our genre is the amount of trolls. Internet tough guys, internet tough girls who think that it is their job, their duty to put you down. And they are ever present. I've been a victim of this. I've seen others who have been victims of this. In fact, I was watching on Twitter. One show host recently said because of the trolling that she was planning on quitting because nobody likes who she is getting for guests. Nobody likes what she is doing. And she is feeling down and out and doesn't want to do something that she loves anymore because of trolling. People are very, very tough when they aren't facing you face to face. Anybody could be a tough guy or a tough girl. Okay. It's a new form of bullying that's been going on for a number of years. It's a challenge because you just cannot turn somebody off, because it doesn't matter even if you block them from your channel. They could still go on 1,000 different Facebook groups or whatever and put you down. My resident troll does it all the time. Okay. This was a guy who I made his name for him. And now he trolls me, calling my show UFO excrement, the worst of the worst, the leader of woo excrement that needs to be abolished and obliterated from the UFO community. Isn't that nice to hear? Isn't that nice to, see this internet tough guy acting tough with big words because he's got a bachelor's degree in science? Yeah. We see it all the time. We see people arguing over politics because they may support a different party, or immediately if you have a guest who's a known Republican, heaven forbid, or a known conservative in Canada, that all of a sudden you're a bad person and must support everything that is cringe that the other side thinks is cringe, at least, that you must support that. Gone are the days, unfortunately, are of unbiased reporting, unbiased news stories. Today we see attack media. It's not very polite. The internet is horrible for it. And there are no rules. There's nothing to stop these people from doing this. And this is why when I do the show, I have eliminated people. I block people. I don't even pay attention anymore. I get a lot of people every day who will come out and say, hey, you got to listen to this podcast, or you got to listen to that podcast, or this podcast, or that podcast. And number one, I don't have time. But number two, I don't do it because I don't want to be a part of someone's potential drama. There's the truth. Because if I go into a chat room and say it's somebody who's a controversial figure, or there's somebody in there who doesn't like my show, I get it. Okay, recently I was on a great UFO show with Martin Willis and friends. And I, in the comments, got torn up in that. Calling me a fake about my stories, calling me a liar. I got big shoulders, man. I can take that crap. That's not a problem for me. But the internet tough people, they like to think that because they don't believe my stories, that immediately I'm lying. I'm doing it for ratings. I'm doing it for clickbait. I'm saying all this stuff. There's no way all of that crap could have happened to one individual. No way. My thing is, were you there? Were you there? So if you weren't there, how do you know it didn't happen? Well, I just don't believe it. Oh, okay. So because you have an opinion on what is right and what is wrong and what I'm saying, it's automatically untrue. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Just because your opinion doesn't match with mine doesn't mean that it's untrue. And the weird part about it is people feel obsessed that they need to go out and attack other people online, in forums, in blogs, in YouTube channels, and their chat rooms and everything. And it doesn't happen here a lot, but I do see it around and I do pay attention. Of course. I mean, what would it be without having your resident troll? And the dude down in Texas knows who he is. Okay, him and his 8 followers. Literally, about 8. Yeah. When he left Spaced Out Radio, I can tell you right now, he had about 8 followers go with him. We got 25,000 strong just on our YouTube channel. He's got 8. It's funny. So you sit there and you take it because there's nothing you can do. And you have to have thick skin about these topics because even though we all love UFOs, differing opinions cause differing actions. There are people out there I don't agree with. I don't agree with their assessment. I don't agree with what they're talking about at all. But I try and be cordial because not that I'm saying that to think that I'm better, but I know what it's like to take the crap. And if you're listening to this type of programming on a daily basis, our radio station clientele, probably not. You're probably tuned into us because you love us. And I hope you do. But especially for our internet crowds on the podcast, on the YouTube side, and wherever you're listening. If you don't like the show, doesn't matter whether it's mine, Jimmy Church's, Coast to Coast, or any of the 10,006 podcasts that are on Bigfoot alone or the UFO world or whatever. Guess what? If you don't like a show, you don't have to listen. The beautiful part about the internet is there is room for everybody. There is room for everybody to get out there and speak on a microphone, which is their own platform, to give their opinion. Go for it. Go for it. Have some fun. You be you. And if there's somebody out there that you want to interview and they are controversial, who cares? Who cares? If you want to talk to them, go talk to them. Get your questions answered. That's okay. We are allowed to be individuals here. But if you don't like a show, instead of tearing the host a new butthole, how about you just don't listen? Give a thumbs down as a worst case scenario. But there are some people who just, I don't know whether they were bullied in life or that they're just an a-hole to be an a-hole. but they feel they got to give that cheap shot. Now, like I said, I can take it. I've been around long enough where I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and experienced them all in this field. And that's just when I worked in sports radio. And it ain't much different here with this. I remember one time when I was on sports radio, I accidentally mixed up a score. Okay? I had the Chicago White Sox losing instead of winning. I got a phone call within 45 seconds of coming off the air, and this listener's like, hey, you got that score wrong on the baseball score. I said, yep, I know, I misread it. Yeah, you did. Why'd you do that? So I asked the guy, I said, sir, where do you work? What do you do for a living? He goes, well, I work at a warehouse or whatever. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I said, tell me where you work. Why? I said, because I'm going to come to your work and I'm going to come and critique your job to see if you make any mistakes. Well, you don't have to be like that. I said, no, I have to. He goes, why? I said, because you felt the need to call me on my error of reading a sports score. You felt the need to call me within a minute of me getting off the air to correct me. So let me come to your work and correct you. That's fair, isn't it? Well, you don't have to be like that. Oh, I have to. I have to. He hung up on me. But the point that I'm getting at is this. Let's just stop being jerks to each other on the internet. I don't need it. Other hosts don't need it. If you don't like what I do, that's fine. You're allowed. You're really allowed. But the easy part, before you let your fingers do your talking, is remember, every word you say is there for life. Number one. And number two, it will always reflect back on you like a mirror. That's your Dave 101. Now let's get to Shirky Poo's news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
All right, we're starting off with Florida Man here. They rose up by the dozens from across Florida, charactering competitors in tank tops, cut-off shorts for a showdown that treats evading police and wrestling over beer like Olympic sports. Promoted as the most insane athletic showdown on earth, the Florida Man Games poke fun from the state's reputation for bizarre stories that involves brawling, drinking, gunfire, reptile wrangling, and other antics, carrying a risk of time in jail or intensive care. The games kicked off last Saturday with the Star Spangled Banner played on electric guitar. Then spectators sipped canned beers behind metal barricades, cheered on, and frequently shouted expletives at a dozen teams battling in contests inspired by real events from America's most surreal state. James Gordon of DeLand won the first event, wolfing down a plate of loaded with barbecued pork and sausage. A fraction of a second before his nearest competitor, he chugged a beer to celebrate. Oh, yeah, there's some redneck happening here. I've lived in Florida my whole life, Gordon said after washing the sauce from his hands and beard. They're calling these events. I'm calling this Tuesday afternoon. One event had contenders dueling in muddy water in an inflatable pool, pummeling each other with weapons made from pool noodles and duct tape. Another was a theft simulation relay in which competitors raced while toting a pair of bicycles, copper pipes, and catalytic converters. Larry Donnelly trained for the relay race by riding a bicycle around his neighborhood with a second bike strapped to his back. It paid off Saturday when he won his heat after picking up a bike in each hand and running with them. I have absolutely no disregard for any self-preservation. I will do anything, said Donnelly, who's 42 years old and owns a St. Augustine pressure washing business. He serves as captain of the 5-man Hanky Panky's team. When I was in the military, I did a little alligator wrestling myself, he stated. Oh, wow. That's good stuff. Let's go over to, here's a weird story. At Venice Beach, California, 2 women got into it, one fully clothed, the other one, not so much. She was butt naked, and they battled it out right on the Venice Beach boardwalk. The nude nightmare took place in broad daylight after the woman had gone on a bit of a tear, attacking people at the popular tourist area, according to TMZ, until she met her match. While others managed to avoid the woman or filmed her antics from afar, another woman in a black tank top and leggings was ready to throw down. Onlookers filmed or scampered by. The woman, wielding what appeared to be a club with spikes on the end of it, approached her naked opponent saying, "Let's go." The armed woman swung the weapon in the naked lady's direction. As the two taunted one another, the woman in the leggings threw the club in the direction of the nude, lewd combatant, who picked it up and started running at her opponent and others on the boardwalk. The clothed woman, however, grabbed another club like a weapon, and the two faced off in a bizarre duel. The naked woman, again, she may or may not have been on drugs. Let's just be honest. Okay? Was not to be underestimated as she disarmed her rival, grabbing the second baton. Now wielding two clubs, the nude fighter, that is, pursued the woman who had walked away by that point before deciding to stop while she was ahead. The naked woman is seen picking up her clothes, which were strewn all across the boardwalk. The incident went on for about 6 minutes, witnesses told TMZ, in which others were accosted and threatened by the naked lady. It's unclear if police laid any charges. That's Florida woman in California, which is a weird state on its own. All right. A kilt-wearing Texas man took great pleasure in besmirching some antiques by allegedly placing them in his unmentionables and sticking them up his butt. Harris County Constable Precinct 4 office said several citizens allegedly witnessed a man, later identified as Michael C. Vest, taking items from vendors at the antique outlet mall and placing them in his rectum, then turning them into shelves, or returning them back into the shelves. This story's got me all verklempt. The items included a makeup brush, a tool used for restoration, a bottle opener, and a tobacco tent can. Law and Crime reported. The incidents allegedly were captured on surveillance cameras, and outlets reported that he defiled antiques were worth about $204 in total and were later thrown out. Who even wants to wash that? Antique gallery manager Susan Golden said she believed Vest had visited the shop previously and had spent several hours shopping. "I just am really in shock," said Golden. "I just really don't know what to say or think." By the way, the dude is 60 years old. He was arrested, later released from jail after posting $100 personal bond. Yeah, if you're in an antique store, leave your butt alone. The antiques don't deserve it. They've survived this long without you. It's probably the safest thing I can say right now. How weird is that? This is humanity, people. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter or X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio at SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Who goes to an antique store to shove antiques up his ass? Seriously. Who does that? Hi, X. How you doing? I don't get people, man. I don't get it. Don't get it at all. Our Keith Andrews tomorrow night, people. She's going to be a good one. A gooder. Going to be a gooder. It's going to be a gooder. Mm-hmm. Weird. Check it tomorrow. Sorry, I was just looking something up on the podcast host here. That. And where am I here? Oh, yeah, hold on. When that's in. Guys, I'm having some issue problems here with my computer, so I'm going to have to end this thread tonight because I have to apparently deal with this now. If it's not one thing, it's another. So thank you to Major Lee, CS, Bigfoot Rob, Mama Catherine, and Sandra for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love. Our Keith Andrews tomorrow night, everyone. So let's have fun, and we'll see you all tomorrow night as we continue on with another wonderful show of woo. All right, you guys have a great night, and we will talk to you tomorrow, everyone. Bye-bye.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.